Here and welcome to the April 2021 Idea Share. So we just finished Holy Week, celebrated Easter. So let's hear from everybody. What was church like for you on Sunday? Where are you in terms of in person, families coming back? I'd love to hear some stories. So whoever wants to go first, let's jump right in.
Well, I'll start.
Good, Sylvia, good. Thank you.
Like everybody was either trying to find their unmute button or something other. I mean, that's how we roll these days. We still shut down, doing absolutely nothing in the building. Our music arts and drama ministry put on a play, a presentation where a small group of people could come in. The people that were producing the play and the performance did that. We had a part one, a part two, and a part three. And part one was Friday night, and then part one was played again on Saturday, and then part two was done on Sunday morning. And then part three was Sunday evening, where we had a concert and everything. Of course, that does not involve any of our special needs population or anything unless they participate in those ministries. But we did regular stuff with the special needs ministry community. We had 3 Sunday school classes, and our social skills group meets on the first Sunday of every month. So we had a social skills group and 3 Sunday school classes, and that's about where we are right now.
All right, and any words, Sylvia, from your leadership on possible reopening now that vaccinations are happening?
Our numbers are going up here in Maryland, DC, and Virginia. I mean, significantly. We had like almost 2,000 more cases in Maryland recorded over the weekend. So no, we are one of the mass vaccination sites our church has set up, and we're using our Family Life Center, which is a gym rec area, and we are vaccinating about, I think last Thursday we calculated about 1,200 vaccines a day. So that's where we are, and we will not open until we get clearance that everybody has an opportunity to come back.
All right, well, way to hang in there.
I'm enjoying it. Take my word for it. Okay. Once we pivoted, I embrace it wholeheartedly, and like, okay, let's go.
All right. All right. Well, we'll keep it up. I'll jump in really quickly and tell you about what my church did. So we had 3 services on Sunday, and our church has been opened for quite a while now with for any children's ministry, which includes special needs ministry. We do have reservations. So it is each week families need to reserve a spot. So I had my usual number of pandemic usual number of students. But a couple of my families came back for the first time. So that was really wonderful. And this is kind of cool. So we, before the pandemic, I had several dedicated special needs classrooms, including for elementary. But during the last several months, I haven't been able to use those classrooms. And so we have been, doing full inclusive for elementary, even with our students who normally would do better in a more sensory friendly environment. But at one of our hours, we had, I think, 16 elementary kids all together. Is that right? Yeah, 16 altogether, or 20 or something like that. And I looked around and I realized 4 of them were our special needs students. Like, I thought that was a really cool percentage. So, and they were doing great. And so that kind of gives us the incentive to really, head forward with the like full inclusivity. So that was really cool. Our church did do an outdoor service just to accommodate, church at large families who weren't ready to come back in the building yet. And it was pretty cool. And the amazing thing was, we're in Cleveland, right on Lake Erie. It was actually a beautiful day. So the snow we had early in the week had melted. It was sunny. It wasn't raining. It was fantastic. So that allowed some families who weren't comfortable coming back in the building to worship together. So it was a really great weekend. Who'd like to go next?
I'd like to go next. My name's Patty Collinsbore. I'm from Rochester, New York, and Heritage Christian Services in Rochester. For Easter, for the people I support, I wrote to each of the group homes and encouraged the staff to help individuals watch church services online. Individuals we support are still not able to go visit church in person, just to make sure everybody stays safe and healthy. The churches that I serve as a priest and pastor, the Episcopal churches in Rochester are slowly starting to open up. On Easter, I wasn't assigned to serve anywhere, but attended a church for the first time in person in a while, and it was so nice to be back, having communion with bread only. But churches here are slowly opening back up, which is nice.
Yeah, wasn't it an amazing feeling to actually be live in person with other people again worshiping?
Yes, very, very much so, and still nice to know that the option for the services are still are also still on video as well.
Yes, and I would say at my church probably the majority of the people were watching at home, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's nice to be back in with other people.
Yeah. Who else would like to fill us in? Yeah, Al.
I'm in northern New Jersey. Yesterday, my wife, we were in 3 different churches, my family, in person. I was in one, my wife and special needs son, another, my other son was in one, all in person. We also had Capernaum events Wednesday and Wednesday and Sunday or Saturday. The Wednesday one was supposed to be an egg hunt in person, but it got canceled, went virtual, which was good because the leader came down with COVID the next day. So it was good that it was virtual. Otherwise, we would have bigger problems. And then I was part of an in-person egg hunt on Saturday. So that was really good. There was one family we hadn't seen in over a year. They came, so it was nice to see them in person after a long time.
That's awesome. Was the egg hunt special needs, like a special needs?
That was special needs, 14 to 22-year-olds.
Okay. Wonderful. So for those of you who don't know Al, he is like the ultimate networker, and he's actually one of the host sites for Inclusion Fusion Live 2021 that's taking place in a matter of days. So days. If you're anywhere near the kind of New York, New Jersey metro area, Al's your guy.
Unless you're near Philly, then Allison's your person.
And then Allison, yes. And Allison, can you fill us in on what that going to our next host site, you're down here.
Are we just like going round?
Yes.
If I'd known Al was hosting, I'd have gone to his.
Yeah. Allison is a host site in the Philly area. So tell us what church looked like for you this weekend.
Well, it was exciting because I think we opened, I want to say January, and it's been a very slow trickle of people coming in person, registering. We opened children's ministry for ages 2 to 2nd grade with just 2 classrooms. And I've had, on one campus, I've had 2 of my special needs kids coming regularly, and on another campus, I've had 2 coming regularly. But again, to your point, what's been exciting is that some families are still keeping their special needs kids coming in person, but they're coming into the service, and it's just becoming a much more inclusive environment where, you know, the extra shouts of joy that come from the back from my kiddos just being accepted, and I love it. That's sort of been a huge answer to prayer. What was lovely was one of those moments of, am I on hospitality this week? Am I not? I end up helping out at the front, and I see one of my kiddos coming in. She's 16. She's nonverbal, but her mum is only Spanish speaking. So between my broken Spanish and her, I'm trying to say I hadn't got any volunteers, but I'm like, give me 10 minutes. I'll be in the special needs room. So I haven't seen her for 14 months. So that was really special. So she came back for Easter Sunday. Yeah, and it was just, it's getting there. But I think our numbers for actual Easter weekend, I think we've almost doubled overnight the in-person attendance. And I think we've probably just switched in, we'll see whether it continues next week, to more people in person than online. So that was a huge praise for what we'd been sort of praying for, because we have got pretty high numbers of vaccinations going on, you know, locally. But I'm slightly envious of Sylvia, because I was in my zone when we were in lockdown and I'd got all my plans in, and now I'm in that petrified state of, how do I reopen? I'm a little bit all over the place now, so I'm looking for some surefire advice.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny, this morning I spent some time kind of reviewing some of the topics and discussion questions that we're going to address during Inclusion Fusion Live, and it is like right on target with what you're talking about. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. All right, who else would like to share what Easter looked like? Yes, the Meekins.
So yesterday, I think the people came in droves. I think people are so ready to get back. This was only our second time since COVID hit, being in the actual main sanctuary, and we go to Thomas Road, so it's huge. And so we were just kind of staying away from that. We've been doing life group on the premises, but it's a small group of people in a classroom. You can kind of come in the back door and go out the back door. So we were happy with that. But man, was it nice to be back in the sanctuary. And Amy likes to be way down front. So we are like right there in front of everything that's going on. And the music is crazy loud, and she just loves it because she has a hearing loss. So that's our daughter, Amy, who has Charge syndrome. And so she was happy. That was her first time back. So she was really happy. And it was just a wonderful time of remembering that, hey, we really love this, you know, and this is the goal. This is always going to be the goal, that God's people be together to worship. And so that was really cool. I also want to tell you about a couple of very specific special needs events that we got to be a part of. That was so cool. So the big Easter event that we normally do that for special needs families that goes out into the community, we had to kind of, you know, watch our numbers, because you can only have so many people in each room at a time. But what's a blessing where we are is that there are many rooms and a lot of them are big. So what helps with that, to have a facility like that, is that you can invite more people. So we had to watch our numbers and compared to what we've done in the past, but we had a good event and the families were so happy. So they came in and they had breakfast, and they only sat with their own family at the table. So that was kind of that social distancing thing that we needed to do, although they did kind of like migrate to other tables because they needed to see each other, but we're not telling anybody that. So, and then I know this is recorded, it's fine. And then there were 3 different outposts. So one was where it was an outside playground where the Easter story was told from the Bible. And then they had an Easter egg hunt. And of course, that's the cutest thing ever, right? To watch all these people running around getting their little eggs. And then the second outpost was, we have this really cool train that even adults can ride in. And so, and what I didn't say was that we had Liberty students available to us that were, they're part of a CEC club. I don't know if you guys are aware of what that is, but it was it's one of the clubs on campus.
For service.
That's national. I think it's a national club. Yeah. And so that was cool because they were there and available to the families to help with their children to go to these different posts, and they were separated into 3 different groups so that only one small group was in each of the outposts at one time. So then they could do the train, and then they had another one where they had different craft activities, or you could play with dinosaurs, or you could do magnet tiles. And so it was like one little group of people at a time, represented one family at a time that was represented at those. And the families just loved it. They were so happy to be there. It was catered to their kids, so they didn't have to be stressful the whole time, wondering if they were going to do something inappropriate, because everybody's doing everything inappropriate. And it was great because they just felt like, okay, this is home, and it was good. So that was good. And then for our ministry, we had the wonderful opportunity of putting together Easter bags. And we did a drive-through, the famous drive-throughs that we've all learned about. So we did it at our home, so they could drive by our home. We did the same thing at Christmas, but we did it again here at Easter. But this time we widened the amount of time that they could come. And it was individual cars, and we got to actually talk to people that haven't really been able to be together very much. And we haven't been able to see their eyeballs. We've seen them on screens like this, but we haven't really been able to see them in the flesh. And most of them had their kids in the car, so we got to, talk with their kids, and it was just a really good time. It was a crazy day for us because people were texting every time they pulled up in the driveway, and you sit down for 5 minutes, not knowing how long you were going to sit, and then you're running again. But it was delightful. And we put things, some people like to know what we put in our bags. Coloring books and crayons, our biggest goal was the Easter message, because you get a lot of little chicks, and you get eggs, and you get, all kinds of other stuff, bunny rabbits and jelly beans and all that stuff, right? So we wanted it to be all about Christ, what was in our bags. We didn't give any food away because that's stressful for these families sometimes. So it was coloring books and crayons, thank you, Oriental Trading, and bubbles and stickers and sensory toys inside of eggs, and stuffed friends inside of eggs. And they loved, opening those and seeing those, and a gift card for the parents. So they were thrilled, just to have the opportunity to come by, to be loved on, because we just can't help ourselves. And then, to be able to move on and know that they've been loved, and that they've been singled out, and they've been invited to come to this drive-by. And then the last thing, and then I'll leave it off for you all. We have been asked if we would teach the adult special needs class once a month. So we're going to start doing that probably within the month, I would think. And so we have opportunity for influence. So y'all could pray that we can help them understand how to broaden their horizons and to really love on these wonderful adults. And we already know them and we adore them. So it'll be fun to continue that relationship and make it go deeper. And then have the influence of maybe using some of Ability Ministries curriculum and, just all kinds of resources that you all have, and bringing that into that people group. So we're excited about that.
Whoa, well, I don't know about you, but that was like an infusion of joy all around. So thank you, Tom and Julie, for everything that you're doing, for sharing with us. So, okay, my mind was going all these places, but 2 things. Does your church own a train?
We do.
Yeah, I
We
did.
do.
Yeah, toy train. It
Wow.
just goes around.
It's so cool. It's got like
I've driven it before.
yeah, Tom, but it's hard. It's hard on the knees when you get older, but it's it's really cool. And the kids, a lot of kids can sit on there. Of course, we distance them because of COVID, but and it's such a huge highlight. So they bring it in for events like this, and then they leave it up because we have a school. There's a gym. And so we leave it up for Sunday. So then the kids on Sunday, whoever's in the building, they go by class and they can ride the train again.
Wow. Okay. So that's amazing. And then the second thing, and this is for all you children's ministry folks out there, when you were describing your church, in my head, I was singing, big house with lots and lots of rooms. So,
yeah, we're attached to Liberty University, so there's an expansion there too.
got it.
Yeah, we've got facility, and so what is the goal? Use that facility for these special needs people, and we're there's very few advocates and a lot of opportunities, so we just have to get that out there.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good point, Julie. There's a couple weeks ago, and it looks like Catherine fell off the call. Okay, a couple weeks ago, there was a blog post on keyministry.org that I think Lisa Jamieson wrote, and it was about using our facilities when they're not in use by, the church, but really opening those up to benefit the special needs community. So there's some really cool opportunities for partnership there. So awesome. All right, I am calling on Bronwyn because her hand has been up this whole time and she's probably exhausted from it.
Well, I put it up and then forgot it was just
Oh,
but I still, yeah, I was like, oh, that's awesome. A train. I do not know another church that has a train. So we don't have a train, but yesterday was the first time since COVID that we met as a whole church. We met outside, and we're still not allowed to have minors mix like groups. We have to stay, they still have to stay with their family unit. But it was pretty fantastic. Some people came, I haven't seen in person since last March. And I'm like, wow, your kid is suddenly taller than me. And like, you probably have a driver's license or like a part-time job, or like, I don't know what you're doing. You're in grad school. I don't know what you're doing. And so it was really nice to see some of those families. And we had all the things for Easter. We had an Easter egg hunt in a big fenced, we have an outdoor preschool, so a big fenced area. Families could participate in. We had droves of teenage volunteers who wanted to come and help because they were so excited that their little people were back. They're like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait. They showed up early to hide all the Easter eggs. We had about 15 or 20 high schoolers come and do that. So just a really just positive, enthusiastic kind of thing. We're in kind of in the middle of university, but agriculture town. So we had someone come. I didn't know this was happening. They just told me to announce it as it was going on. We had people bring farmers bring like their rabbits and their lambs, and they were just kind of going about the property. And so kids were playing there. So it was a very nice, like it felt almost normal. We had a big slushy truck. There's like a slushy company in town, and they just rolled up in our parking lot and parked there, and kids got slushies. And like it was a very it was like celebrating everything that we couldn't celebrate for the last year. But everyone was masked and social distance, and there's sanitizer everywhere. And you cannot go inside unless you're using the bathroom. So all in all, it was pretty fantastic. The day before, so on Saturday, we hosted a respite kind of morning for one individual family. So it was myself and two high school volunteers for a family that we knew could not come to outdoor worship. There are a number of families that are, it's not accessible. And then that's kind of the direction our church is going right now. So we are, I got some inspiration from Jillian Palmieto's house church model. So we're doing backyard church now for some of the families. We used to do it on site for individual respite, but now that the facility is getting used a bit more and it's only outdoors, we're going to go in people's backyards, I guess. So that's pretty cool. So thank you guys. A lot of you, who are further along in the reopening discussion have given me lots of inspiration of kind of how to connect and serve and how to talk to, other staff members about why this works and why, maybe the traditional way that we think we're going to gather doesn't work. Although we're doing nothing traditional out here. Like I said, we're all outside. A lot of staff got sunburned yesterday. So yeah, we are outside for the foreseeable future for pretty much everything. But families, it's a little tricky because, like I said, families have to stay together on a Sunday morning. So we're figuring out what that looks like. And we're thinking of having after church. We've done this before when we haven't been able to have service. We're thinking about having like a field day kind of after church. Like I said, we have a huge outdoor school facility. It's all outdoors. And so we're going to open it up and have families be able to play, and we'll have volunteers that are going to hang out with kids and just interact with them at the different play areas. So, we're trying to think outside the box out here, and thank you guys for all of your input in that too. I know Haley, you're out in California too, so you probably feel this too.
That's awesome. So I love the backyard church thing. And gosh, trains, slushy trucks, we've got some really cool churches here. All right, who else would like to share?
I'll
Ryan.
share. Yeah, my name is Ryan. I'm from a small church in Southern California, and I also work at Johnny and Friends. And so our church has been meeting in a tent in our parking lot for the last couple months. They've they had to destroy a couple trees to put it up, but they drove these big 2-foot stakes through the asphalt to get a tent set up. So we've been able to meet in person, but we haven't had really much for kids before 2 weeks ago. And I think it was in preparation for Easter that they finally set up a little area specifically for kids. But before that, the families had been mingling. And I think, I forget who, but somebody mentioned it earlier that people are more used to just hearing noises now during the service. And so because all the kids have been together, I think it's going to have long-term positive effects for the church, because they're just used to hearing kids screaming and like drawing chalk in front of you while you're trying to, do whatever. But we're talking, my wife and I, my wife was a buddy for a kid, and we hadn't seen them all during COVID. And so they came back for Easter for the first time. And he said something that I thought was worth thinking about and noticing. He's like, oh, we just haven't bothered. We haven't bothered to come back. It's just been so convenient to just get up and make breakfast and then sit on the couch for church. And so I think that's going to be one of the challenges, is making it worth it to come back, as opposed to just like, it's not worth the hassle. It's not worth the, the stress or the potential problems. But yeah, I mean, we're lucky that the weather permits basically us to be outside all the time.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
we're a little jealous of California in that respect.
yeah, we got sunburned a lot early on too, but then they got the tent and that solved a lot of the problems. But the first, like when we were meeting in the summer last year, it was 110 degrees out, and then you're sitting on blacktop and it's way hotter. And the first time doesn't matter. Not really relevant.
But you didn't
anymore.
have snow last week, so
Yes, we did not have snow last week. It was 85 degrees yesterday.
Nice.
So that's a different thing, but it's like a small church. We don't have a lot of space to go anyway. But I don't know, there's a lot of benefits and things that I hope. Thousand Oaks, California, it's Ventura County, Brunlin. Yeah, but the building itself is not super accessible. So the fact that we now meet in the parking lot means that anybody can get there. And we've had somebody in a wheelchair coming, including this like group of homeless people that lived at the park next to the church, have started coming to church now because we're doing it outside, and they just kind of wandered up and got some coffee and donuts, and people have been like reaching out and meeting with them and discipling them and getting them involved. So there's been a lot of peripheral goods, not all necessarily related to special needs, but like you kind of count homelessness as, another one of those forgotten groups. And so I think it's just having this net effect where the church is just now more used to things being a little messier. And I'm really hopeful for how that's going to pan out long term.
Yeah, that's a pandemic blessing for sure. Bronwyn said in the chat, so I'll read it for those that can't see it or are watching the recording later, but she said she loves that. She hopes it does change the church. And I think that was when you were talking about just, this more inclusive environment, and we're used to a little bit more messy now. And yeah, for sure. I told you that our church had an outdoor service on Sunday. And for those of you who have been to my church before, Bay Presbyterian Church, because of Inclusion Fusion Live, you'll know that it's on Lake Road, right across from Lake Erie. And it's this beautiful road, and people, it's busy, but a lot of joggers on that road too. And we had joggers that were running past during the service, and then they stopped and they came in and they worshiped with us the rest of the time. So that was really cool, because we were reaching people that we wouldn't normally have been able to reach. So that's cool. I had something else to say about what Ryan said, but I cannot remember. So anybody else? Yes, Evelyn, hi.
I'm in Florida, and we've been open sort of for a while. However people feel comfortable, that's the way Florida's going. But we've had enough vaccinations that people really came on Sunday, and it was glorious. And the fact that people were choosing to come, the worship and the sermon and everything just really connected with some people. You could tell by their body language that they were connecting. Couldn't see the bottom half of their face, but they were connected. We'll
assume they were smiling under the mask.
Yeah. And one of the things that was kind of different, we had several special needs outreaches during the year, but we had noticed that the families just weren't coming. These were our adults with disabilities who were living at home, and those parents got them in the car and came. But the families with multiple kids, it was just too much trouble to load them in the car for a drive-by. So we said, well, let's just take Easter eggs. And again, no food. It was basically the resurrection eggs only with paper pictures. And then we did it kind of like a matching game where they would have a big egg and inside was a dice with the different pictures, so they could roll that and then find the egg that had that picture in it. So it was Christ-centered. And so we said, okay, we'll have our buddy break volunteers, our buddies, just do chalk art on the driveways. And so we had some families responding, but the buddy break, the teenage volunteers, which we were hoping would kind of respond to this, just didn't. I think it was just spring break kind of messed up their, well, and the whole year has messed up their connection with these families. So I just said, hey, we've got our adults that have been so faithful during the year. We've just been doing Zoom Bible study for 14 months. And so we found which ones lived in that area, and I contacted the families and said, who's available to meet me there? And I did a poster board cross so that they would have something to trace, to draw, and a poster board Easter egg. And it was just really great to have that crossover of the adults serving what I just called them isolated families. I didn't, label them. I just said, these people are isolated. And so they were just delighted to be able to serve. And it was pretty logistically crazy trying to everybody's schedules, but it was so worth it.
I love that. I love how you came up with an opportunity for service. That's really, and blessing other families through that service. So that's really cool.
And there were some, she volunteered for this to do chalk art and then said, I don't touch chalk.
Okay.
Said, okay, well, you hold the cross and I'll trace around. Oh, okay.
Oh, good one. All right. Would anybody else like to share? No. All right. Oh yeah, Julie.
I know I've talked a lot, so I want to make sure that I don't talk too much longer. I'm guilty of that, but I have to share this one thing that our pastor did that just really spoke to our hearts, and we know it was a huge deal in raising awareness in our church. So about a year ago, a young man that was very well known in the church, who had Down syndrome, who's now happy and whole in heaven, passed away. And we all loved Benji so much. And it hurt the whole church because we all loved him. But he had a good friend, his name is David, who also has Down syndrome. And David is like 35, he just turned 35. And the pastor said that David had come up to him and asked him if he could pray in church for the congregation 1 year after Benji died. And so the pastor held his promise. I want to cry. Held his promise, and he stood up and he talked about Benji, and he made a big deal about Benji, and he talked about how the Lord was so evident in Benji's life. I mean, the man, every time he opened his mouth, it was all about scripture. It was all about Jesus. It was about personally loving you, bringing Jesus to you. That was his whole life. And so he was talking about Benji, and then he said, and then here's my friend David, who sits right as close as he can get to the pastor, because there are other people that need to sit near the pastor, but as close as he can to the pastor, David always sits near him. And he said, David asked if he could come and pray. And so here is David, and he handed him the microphone. And I'm telling you, what a precious, precious time that was. Wouldn't it be wonderful if all pastors across the country, across the world, would do something like that to just let people know there is not a spiritual disability here. It's a physical disability, it might be an intellectual disability, but there is not a spiritual disability here. And it was too precious not to share with you.
Amen and amen. Wow, that's so cool. I love that. Love that. Well, that seems like a really good note to end on, actually. So just before we leave, just a reminder, there's a lot of stuff coming up. So our April Disability Ministry Video Roundtable, which will be Wednesday, I think it's the 21st of April. We're going to talk about, and this is me being selfish because I want to pick all of your brains. Bronwyn, you better be there. Tips and tools for the inclusive Sunday school classroom. So please join us for that. If you've registered for one roundtable, then you'll get the email. But you can always check it out at keyministry.org/events. Then, of course, we have this little thing coming up called Inclusion Fusion Live 2021, IFL 2021. And so this will be both an in-person and a virtual event. And so we really hope that you will all join us in one form or another. And there has been the question asked, what if you're really busy that day and you really cannot attend even virtually? As long as you register, before registration ends, you will have access to the content. Now, unfortunately, you'll miss the live interaction that we're going to have either in your regional area, or we are going to have like a live thing like this after each main stage conversation, but you will still get to see all the main stage conversations. So I encourage you all to take part in that. Oh, and Ryan, I remembered what I was going to say, like my little comment about what you were talking about. You were saying how like people are kind of out of habit of going to the church and a little bit lazy, and that's totally true. And hopefully, as more and more people do come back, I know like in the beginning of the call, a lot of us were just kind of gushing about that feeling of worshiping together, being with people, seeing people we haven't seen in a long time, and just that actual like worship in the same space, be it indoors or outdoors, how meaningful that was. And hopefully, as more and more people experience that, they'll really encourage others to come back and experience that too. So real quick, in the comments, Catherine said, yes, what the pastor says on the platform speaks volumes, gives the church permission to go and do likewise. So that was a follow-up to the story that Julie shared. And Ryan agreed, pastor set the culture of the church. Yes, that's true. And Doc said, amen. And so on that note, thank you for joining us today. We'll be back here the first Monday of May, and have a great month, everybody. And I hope to see you on the roundtable or at IFL 2021.